Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Talking About Our Generation Festival. My name is Joe Bunce, and this is Rachel Bauer.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us for our Sheffield Happening, a celebration of creativity that has been shared as part of this festival this weekend. Talking About Our Generation has been a celebration of protest, of people power, of peace, and of community. And we have had an amazing weekend, well, since Thursday, just looking at all sorts of elements of the 60s and its culture and expressing that in amazing, wonderful, different, creative ways. And today, to finish off our event, we've decided to have this happening, a kind of combination of poetry, music. We're going to see a few extracts from some of the events we've seen and have a lovely old time. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, thanks, Joe. Welcome, everybody, to this wonderful event. It's brilliant to be part of the festival, celebrating poetry and music and dance and cooking, and it's been really brilliant. And also, one of the really amazing things about a festival like this is just bringing people together, making connections between kind of generations and people in different places. And it's something we all need at the moment, I think, to bring, to come together, and everybody's still facing their own challenges. So to come together in our different places is really wonderful. So as part of the festival, one of the things I did was run a workshop on poetry and protest and resistance and peace. So I'm really delighted that we're going to open the festival with one of the pieces that was written as part of that workshop. In the workshop, I encourage people to think kind of really broadly about these things, about how there's other ways to express kind of and to create change and to express protest and resistance, other than just, if you can't go out on the streets and shout, then sometimes there's other ways in our daily lives that we can make change. And Sue Bearden took part in this workshop and wrote a really brilliant, beautiful poem, which she's really kindly recorded for us. It was inspired by the workshop, and in the workshop we listened to Longfellow, which is Tony Walsh. He goes by the name of Longfellow, and we heard his poem "This Is the Place," and it's a poem that was recorded in Manchester after the attacks on Manchester Arena. And it's a really wonderful poem, and Sue took inspiration from that. And also it's a poem about her upbringing, and in her kind of Jewish family, and also a poem of grief for the Palestinians and everything that they're going through at the moment. So a poem about displacement and place. So let's listen to Sue's poem.
This is the place. This is the place my ancestors left behind at the far edges of Europe. The Cossacks snapping at their heels, tossing their babies from windows, their daughters raped, their sons conscripted to fight battles with men they knew no hatred for. This is the place, the shtetl, where the women and children wait, their men walking across Poland, Germany, Holland, weeks of waiting to be summoned, thrown on the mercy of strangers. My grandmother said, in Germany the people were kind. And this is the place they escaped to, arriving up the Thames, under Tower Bridge, to the port of London, crowded into one room in Bow, my great-grandfather and great-grandmother and their 6 children. This is the place, Cable Street, where men in black shirts rampaged, where barricades were manned, where the people cried, these are our Jews, you shall not pass. This is the place of my father's tall stories, Ginsberg, the blind beggar, shouting, I've seen you, I'll tell your father. Of the woman who left her baby in a bath on the stove while she went out to get soap. Of the brother who hid his sister Sadie's knitting in the chimney. This is the place where my grandfather was summoned as an enemy alien to be transported to the Isle of Man, except an angina attack got him first. Where my grandma made buttonholes for the flies of men's trousers, and my father had to run the business even though he had other aspirations. This is the place where we made money, moved to respectable suburbs, bought houses and fur coats, loved the Queen, fitted in. This is the place where nice people in golf clubs said they have their own golf clubs for their own. And we know we had to do better, work harder. In this place where ascendants stood in for acceptance, never truly to stand among those who said, this place is our place. By the waters of Babylon we sat down and we remembered Zion, and a man with an eye patch led his troops into Jerusalem and said, come, here is your place. We will eat oranges in the desert. We will grow strong and healthy and robust through working on the land of our forefathers. And we will proclaim never again for our enemies to hear. This is the place where not us but others will be driven from their homes. This is the place where we will build an army and checkpoints and high walls to keep us secure, where others will live in fear of us because our might will outstrip theirs.
Wow. Thank you, Sue. It's just an amazing, such a wide-ranging poem, almost an epic poem. And Sue's really keen to say, this is not a finished, polished piece. I'm amazed. How did she write that in that workshop in such a short space of time? It's incredible. So thank you. The detail is just incredible, that concrete detail. So thank you. Thanks so much for that, Sue.
Yeah, beautiful. So moving. Sue actually featured again in the festival as part of an event we had on Friday night, which was an interview with Jenny Fortune. Jenny Fortune is kind of a leading member of the women's liberation movement in the 60s and 70s, and recently released a book called Misbehaving, which covered all sorts of things, but mainly focused on this one act of rebellion, this big protest, wherein a group of this women liberation movement protesters sneaked into the Miss World contest when it was being held in London, and caused a little bit of chaos, a little bit of carnage by throwing flower bombs and smoke bombs and waving football rattles and crying, "We're not beautiful, we're not ugly, we're angry." And I thought it was a beautiful event and really, really interesting. We had some amazing contributions from the questioners in the audience. And we just have a little clip that we thought was particularly interesting and particularly moving. So in a moment, you'll see Sue and Jenny Fortune walking through Sheffield City Centre and talking about whatever comes to mind.
And look, I think this is... Do you know about this?
I was here.
Yeah, I was here too. This is the Sarah Everard vigil. People put
It's
flowers
still
in.
here.
It's and it's still here. And yeah, there we go.
Rest in power, Sarah Everard.
And which actually kind of puts me in mind of another sort of question that we could look at, which is women today.
Yes.
Obviously, we might say a lot has changed, and women have all kinds of opportunities which we didn't perhaps have, but some things haven't changed. And I just wondered what your thoughts about how women today are faring.
Well, do you know what it's been making me think about? I mean, people were particularly frightened by what happened to Sarah Everard because, one, she's a nice white middle class girl with a good professional job.
Yeah.
Two, the person who murdered her is a police officer, not only a police officer but a high ranking police officer who's working on security for Downing Street.
Yeah.
So those two facts were totally shocking for people, I think. I mean, the statistic is that there are 3 to 4 women killed every week in the UK as a result of male violence. So it's been going on, it goes on all the time.
Yeah.
It suddenly shot to public attention because of those two facts, and thank goodness. And what it's made me think a bit more about is the way that women live in fear and that we don't even know we are. we're so used to it.
Yes.
We're so used to taking a back seat, not asserting ourselves, being obedient, being accommodating.
Yeah, but
being-
you know, the event that you were involved in, I mean, that
Was the opposite.
That was the opposite, wasn't it? That was so many of you saying, actually, we're not afraid.
Yes.
Or even if we are, we're going to, like,
Yes.
you know, be afraid and do it anyway. That was very much the thing.
Yeah.
And you were showing your power, your creativity, your determination.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fantastic act. Just the sort of,
Yeah.
even if it, whatever had come out of it, just the very fact that women were doing that was just an extraordinary thing, wasn't
I
it?
think that's why it's kind of resonated
Yes.
for the last 50 years. I mean, it surprised us. I mean, as far as we were concerned, it's like, yay!
Yeah,
You know, we're going to do something that brings this to public attention. And it was just so obvious that the Miss World contest was the sleaziest thing around,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
And it was such a kind of symbol of the way that women were treated, you know.
Yeah.
Turn,
do we-
dear,
that-
show them your bum, dear.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So let's talk more about the actual event, because we've talked a lot about the context in which the event happened.
That was just a snippet of that event where we kind of had both that pre-recorded interview walking through the Sheffield Centre and then the live questions. And it was honestly, I thought it was such a moving event. Some of the things that were spoken about, you know, quite bleak at times, thinking about things that, oh, you know, we're 60 years later and maybe, or 50 years later and they haven't changed, but also a message of hope in there as well, and you know, and of progress too.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I really agree with that. You know, seeing that that need to still come together and really, really fight. You know, there's still lots of things to challenge. And I was at an event on Friday, which was my sister's Uncut, and you know, this thing about with Clapham Common and Sarah Everard, it's such a, you know, there's so much still that still feels like it hasn't changed. But then I really agree. I mean, that interview is so interesting, in the idea of hope and coming together and remembering, you know, keeping things in our memories and making sure that we make those connections over time. So I thought it might be a nice time to read one of my poems, and I thought it might be nice in response to that to read Women of Steel. So I wrote this poem for National Poetry Day for the BBC Sheffield in 2016. It's a poem that is really about connecting generations. It's about connecting what the women did during the war, that was still, you know, still continues to be not fully recognised, but it's beginning to be more recognised, you know, in the statue in town and in popular memory. That, but also it's a poem about the way that Sheffield has come together and, you know, still do that now, and the way that we still have hope by coming together in events like this, in spaces like this. And the way that we must continue to do that and keep that spirit alive. And I think it's really important now going forward that we, you know, that we imagine what do we want Sheffield to be like going forward from here? What do we want our communities to be like? This is like part of thinking about what protest and power and peace and people power means now. I think for us, it's about looking back and bringing what we want to keep and still continuing to challenge what we don't want to keep. So this is Women of Steel. We are sisters who clank through the streets, on restless feet and chain-linked arms, the deep pull of awe in our loins, calls of ancestors deep in the rock of yoke and plum and rust. I polish her toes till they shine. I know she'd do this, and I know that she'd polish mine. We are women of steel. Women who do what we feel, women who do what we can. Women who cry, women who rise, women at the heart of this town. My nipples leak steel milk, and she keeps holding me up. We are women who labour and birth, women who work, women who juggle dark peaks and light, women who do what we can. When Cleethorpes too dear, there's the beach in town, the patch of sand that scratches our palms, sisters of steel squatting down. She wipes orange tears from my cheeks, keeps holding me up. We are women of steel, of hijabs and braids, of curly and straight, of blonde hair and white. Women who run, women who ride, women who lathe and grind without gloves. We are women of 3 kids and twins on the way, and just a bit of peace. Just a bit of peace, please. She wipes crystal dust from my nails, keeps holding me up. We are women of hills, of limestone and grit, of ups and downs, of you can do it, duck, we'll get through it. We are women who nobody knows. Gilt-plated girls with lacquered legs, women of glad rags, of red crags, of deakin bags back from the food bank. We are women of steel. I grip her shoulder, keep holding her up. Women who do what we feel, women who do what we can, women who cry, women who rise, women at the heart of this town. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's beautiful. I think this event really we're really trying to capture what a happening was. They wasn't necessarily a thing that happened all over the country, all over the world, but we have these stories now about the happenings that would happen in these kind of back rooms of pubs and people's living rooms and things like that, where we would have artists of all sorts of persuasions, performance art, poetry, live art, visual art, all these kind of different creative people coming together to share. And obviously in the last sort of 15 months, it's been so difficult to have anything resembling that. So I felt really, really privileged to be part of this weekend and part of being able to share creativity with so many different beautiful artists. So thank you. We're going to move on to something that wouldn't necessarily have existed in the 1960s. We, as part of the festival, were kind of tasked with this idea of creating a digital event that took advantage of it being a digital event. It wasn't just, let's kind of translate what a normal kind of 60s party night might be and try and put that online. We thought, how can we use the fact that it's online, use the fact that we're kind of using screens to its advantage? And we came up with this idea. Brian Clark, who's a member of our steering group, wanted to create an audio history of Sheffield's music scene. And the way we decided to do it was create basically an app that you can download and walk around Sheffield city centre. And as you walk around, Brian's voice will sort of not whisper, but just talk in your ear and tell you about the Mucky Duck and who would go there and what they'd do there, and this head shop on Division Street and the revolutionary books that it would sell. And I don't want to spoil too much about it, but it was such a beautiful experience to get to do, to walk around and like privately, which in the last year is one of the few kind of bits of pastime that we've been allowed to do, is go for a walk. So being able to do that and check into this wonderful immersive experience has been amazing. We're going to show you a little bit from that Serenade and Symphony, which is all available on the website, and you can get a little taste about what it's about.
5 Cannes Music and Record Shop, Chapel Walk, 1960s. One of the big 2 music shops that sold instruments, sheet music and records in Sheffield. The other was Wilson Pegg. Cannes was a must-go place for the Sheffielders' musical needs and had an exciting ambience where anybody could go and immerse themselves in the paraphernalia of the music business. Philip Cann had previously owned other shops in Sheffield, but it was the Chapel Walk premises that are most fondly remembered from this era. The store carried a large stock of records across all genres. It acquired a good reputation amongst teenagers in the 60s due to the totally enclosed listening booths that had comfortable seats in them. All you needed to do was ask to hear the latest Stones album and retire with your latest squeeze to the comfort of the booth for some rock and roll and maybe a kiss and a cuddle. 6. Cole's Corner, the junction of Fargate and Church Street, 1950s on. The next location is either a place of great joy or great heartbreak, depending on whether your date turned up or stood you up. Cole's Corner is the name given to the place where Fargate joins Church Street, and it was a site of the Sheffield branch of Cole Brothers Department Stores. Cole's Corner has been a meeting place for sweethearts and potential lovers for many generations of Sheffielders. Immortalised in song by Richard Hawley, whose own parents are reputed to have met there, it's a perfect illustration of how music is an integral part of Sheffield's heritage. In reviewing the song, the Guardian newspaper wrote, "A nostalgic and velveteen lullaby for a Sheffield long gone." In 1963, Cole Brothers moved to new premises in Barker's Pool. The building was demolished and a new property was built on the site. Despite the fact that it has never existed as a name on a map and that the actual store was knocked down years ago, couples still meet there and still call it Cole's Corner. Hawley says, "No matter what they do, they'll never take it away from us." A plaque put up by the Rotary Club now marks the spot and ensures its history will not be forgotten.
Thank you, Brian. And as you can see there, you don't only have to go and walk around the streets of Sheffield to kind of experience that. There is a way that we can use very sort of 21st century technology and use Google Earth to sort of have these panoramic views of all these different spots as they are now, while listening to Brian talk about as they were then, which is, yeah, a super experience.
Yeah, it was wonderful. How fascinating. And yeah, and I was really struck by the idea of meeting places. So I think that like leads into another poem that was written as part of the workshop, which I'd like to read. So this was another poem that one of the participants wrote and asked if I would read on their behalf. So this is also a poem. It's such an amazing poem about connection and about humans, really. So it's called Lemon Tree. Sitting in this lemon tree, people are the same. Hands squeezed, held tight, love is the same. Oh, what it is to be a bird in this sour lemon tree. I think it's brilliant. It's a beautiful way. You know, you've got this such a beautiful image of the lemon and such a beautiful lemon tree, and the image of just people are the same. And I think that really came out of that recording as well, you know, the way that people meet and come together, and the way that technology can let us do this even if we're physically separated. So yeah, thank you to that participant for that.
Yeah, amazing, wonderful. That kind of connects quite nicely to what I thought we'd share next. The first event, our opening event at the beginning of the festival, was called Songs of Revolution, and what we did there was we kind of asked Sheffield musicians all across South Yorkshire to contribute a protest song, and we had this wonderful compilation. Some of them recorded them in their homes, some of them recorded them in their gardens or in the pub, and it was a really nice sort of open mic feel, but also that took us from place to place. And one of the things I had the privilege of doing was on that very first day, on the 29th of March or something, where we were allowed to meet people outdoors. We kind of rocked up in Worlowbrook Park, and I brought a couple of cameras, and this band who hadn't played together for about a year hashed through a couple of songs, and it was that wonderful sort of being able to meet and create together. That was so nice. This song is a Dylan song originally, but has been covered time and time again, and it kind of depicts the thoughts and the feelings of someone as they shelter from a lightning storm under a doorway. And they're talking about solidarity with the oppressed and believing that the thunder is tolling in sympathy with them. And I think it's such a beautiful imagery and a wonderful performance from Cella V. So here we have it.
1, 2, 3, 4. Far between sundown's finish and midnight's broken toll, we ducked inside the doorway, thunder crashing as majestic bells of bolts struck shadows in the sound, seeming to be the chimes of freedom flashing. Flashing for the warriors whose strength is not to fight. Flashing for the refugees on the unarmed road of life. And for each and every underdog, soldier in the night. And we gazed upon the chimes of freedom flashing. Even though a cloud's white curtain in a far-off corner flash, and the hypnotic splattered mist was slowly lifting. Electric lights still struck like arrows, fired but for the one condemned to drift, or else be kept from drifting. Stolen for the searching one on their speechless sea trail, or the lonesome lonely lovers with too personal a tale. And for each and every gentle soul is placed inside a jail. And we gazed upon the chimes of freedom flashing. Starry-eyed and laughing, as I recall when we were caught, wrapped by no track of ours, for they hang suspended. And we listened one last time, and we watched with one last look, spellbound and swallowed till the tolling ended. Tolling for the aching ones whose wounds cannot be nursed, for the countless confused, accused, misused, strung out ones and words, and for every hunger person in the whole wide universe. And we gazed upon the chimes of freedom flashing.
Well, thank you very much. I think that the thunder flashing for the refugees on the unarmed road of flight we had there. I think, yeah, I mean, that is as true now as it was then when Dylan wrote it. And I've just seen in the chat Sue saying that the poem that she wrote was easy to do because her sadness and frustration about what's happening in Israel and Palestine just poured out. And I think that that song really kind of captures that helplessness that you feel when you kind of are aware of all these people and their plight that is so far away that you cannot kind of help with. And so really beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And do continue to, if you've got questions or comments you want to put in the chat, then do that. It was really beautiful. And the poem I'm going to read really connects with that, because every year still so many people are fleeing violence and insecurity and persecution, and people risk their lives, to cross the Mediterranean. And one of the this outpouring that Sue mentioned in the chat, I think it's just something, that it's just, there's so much that needs to come out. And so this is a poem that's about the babies that are born in the Mediterranean Sea. European governments are still turning a blind eye, but actually there are some the people at Medicines Sans Frontières have got rescue ships, and I think that we need to continue to highlight the fact that people are still making this very, very dangerous crossing, people dying in the sea, and occasionally it comes into the headlines and then it's lost again, but it's happening all the time. So this poem's about the babies who are born at sea, often who struggle to get citizenship. It's from my new collection, which is coming out in July. It's not out yet. This is the proof copy that I'm still proofing. So it's a little insight into what's coming out. It's available to pre-order from Fly on the Wall Press, but it's not out yet. But this is the first poem in the book. And for people who are interested, it's a sestina, so it's got this repetitive structure, and that's partly about the relentlessness of this stuff, but also the hope that we can change it through talking about it, writing about it, spreading the word. So this is a poem called Water Birth, and it's dedicated to the babies born at sea. Nobody wants to be born at sea, but I'm a midwife. Squeeze my hand, that's it, we've got this girl. She squats, not time to push, bile rising with the swell. Breathe through the surge, keep your head. The baby is well positioned, head down, curled and smooth like a sea-sucked pebble. That's it. Keep breathing. Squeeze those ice packs in your hand. Let's cool these bruises down. I push hair from my eyes. Scrap of girl, clothes soaked in petrol. The girls had been shoved in a dinghy, heads barely covered, then pushed off from shore in a sea coffin. We hauled her up, women's hands helped from behind. We hold our breath now for the baby. I say keep breathing, but English means nothing to this girl. We need Arabic for breathe and girl and hand. The translator's sick as a dog, headed up for fresh air on deck. The sea swells, nearly time to push, and now she's trying not to push, juddering through breaths of thick fog, sick pea soup, and the sea fire is swallowing it all, burning this girl up so she blazes. When the head crowns, she grips, scorches my hand. I make a cave of her face with my hands and tell her, yes, it is time to push. It is time. I can see the head so pushed now. Nearly there, breathe through closed lips, and yes, girl, push against this wave, against this sea that would swallow us all. Head out, final push. And in my hands, a breathing girl, a beautiful girl, a salt pearl birthed at sea. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for sharing that exclusive look at a new poem. We've had all sorts of, sorry, I just caught a little bit, catch my breath a bit there. We had so many beautiful workshops, including the poetry workshop that Rachel ran. And yesterday we had a really, really special time with a co-production we did with Migration Matters Festival, who invited us to collaborate on a kind of cookery workshop that looked at the way that in the 1960s, there was mass migration from India and from all over the world, and these new families, these new migrant families, would be moving to the UK and not be able to get any of the ingredients that they were used to cooking with, and so had to be a little bit more creative. And we made a dish that was made with cabbage and green beans, but it was speaking to Sarah Dadswell, who hosted it, and has the Hilltop Curry House sort of cookery classes. She spoke about the way that they would make these dishes with sprouts and carrots and a really sort of British veg, and then you'd sort of relatives would bring tins of the spices to make it something like what they might have had back where they came from. So we had a lovely workshop, and we're just going to play a little extract about cutting onions for you.
So you can, of course, buy a coconut and grate it. This actually that we have is freshly grated coconut that I've bought in a frozen packet. And there are a couple of shops on Abbeydale Road. Durga is the South Indian shop. If you're going there, they always have it in the freezer. It's a brilliant thing. You can keep the packet in the freezer and then just take bits out as you need it. So this is it. Once it's defrosted, it's absolutely fabulous. You can toast it either by putting it on a tray in the oven and just keep turning it. It's sweet, so it will burn if you're not careful. Just keep turning it every so often. Or you can do it in a frying pan or in a wok, and you can have lovely toasted coconut then, which is great just for putting on your desserts if you want something crunchy. It's a great topping, like you said, you know, for breakfast, for all sorts of things. But rather than desiccated coconut, which is often very, very sweet, if you can get hold of this, I say it's absolutely brilliant.
Yes, I often buy fresh coconut, from the shops in Abbeydale Road, but I found one grocer will do me a favour and break the coconut open for me, because that's I find the most difficult thing. You know, I haven't got the big cleaver that they have. So they'll always do it for me. I lose the water, but I get the coconuts, I take them home, and I'll put them in portions in the freezer and get them out when I need them. Because in Goa we make a very famous chutney with coriander and coconut, and it's a delicious chutney, and I make it a lot. But I don't need the whole coconut. You know.
So I use this actually when I make like a coriander coconut chutney. Do you put ginger or cumin?
I put ginger, I put garlic, I put cumin, lemon juice, tamarind.
Tamarind you put in yours as well,
Yes.
Yeah,
do you have tamarind in Canada?
Oh yeah.
Tamarind is a great flavour, it's a great souring agent.
It is delicious. It's a lot in Bangalore food and a bit further north in Andhra, Hyderabad. Okay, so what we need to do to start here is get all our ingredients ready. So I'm going to start with the onions, and I just wanted to mention with onions for chopping. So I have topped and tailed these onions here. When you're chopping your onions, if you want them to be nice and caramelised, you want to chop them from the top to the bottom. So with the top up there and the root at the bottom. And again, get those fingers around. So you've got this lovely claw. Let's see that way. Is that a bit easier for you to see there? So then you're cutting against your knuckles. So it is almost impossible to cut yourself. And then once you get so far and it gets a bit tricky, just push that onion over so you get a lot more stability, and then you can carry on.
I see you're using red onion.
Wow, that looks brilliant. Great tip about onions, and it looked delicious. The end thing was delicious, so check that out. I think Joe is going to maybe tell us where we can start.
Yeah, you can catch up on that workshop by going to the Talking About Our Generation website, taog.co.uk. You're probably on that website right now. But if you click the catch up button, several of the events, including that one, are available to rewatch.
Thanks to Philip in the chat. There's a comment from Philip saying he met Dot Slingsby, Women of Steel campaigner, brilliant, lovely lady, brilliant. You know, so many of those women had to fight so hard to get this recognition and this statue in Sheffield. So thank you to all of those women, and thanks for that, Philip.
Yesterday, after the cooking workshop, we had a big raucous night where we had a band called The Reeds who came over from Leeds and played us a kind of selection of 60s tunes, taking us from the Beatles to kind of like Summer of Love, psychedelic stuff, the Kinks, the Rolling Stones, and we had a live stream gig which you can also catch up with on the website. And we're just going to play one of the songs from there next. This is The Kinks, I Want to Be With You.
Enjoy.
I'm not content to be with you in the daytime. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. I believe that you and me last forever. Oh yeah, all day. Nighttime, yours, leave me never. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. Get 'em out. I believe that you and me last forever. Oh yeah, all day. Nighttime, yours, leave me never. The only time I feel alright is by your side. Girl, I want to be with you all of the time. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. All day and all of the night. Thank you very much, Tar.
Hey, that was brilliant, and I just want to get up and dance. Really good. Check out the whole gig online.
And I know Brian Clark is watching, and he'll probably be unimpressed that I got the name of that song wrong, which is actually called All Day and All of the Night. And really interesting thing about that song is the Kinks actually came up with the arrangement for it. It was a song they were trying to work out in the studio and practicing at home, couldn't work it out. And they were playing a gig at Club Mojo on Pittsmore Road, which was actually another event that we had at the festival on Thursday night. And that's when they finally cracked it. That's when they finally worked out how that song was going to go. And here we have it. A bit of Sheffield history in that iconic song. And I've just seen Brian is in the chat saying he's enjoying the wrap up. Yeah, I'm glad you are. I think it's been really nice to look back and reflect.
Yeah, I hope everyone's enjoying it. That's brilliant. Thanks, Brian.
We are going to now look at something that was contributed earlier in the week. One of the really beautiful things on the website that you can log on to is an exhibition called "If You Remember the 60s, You Weren't There," and that was produced by the U3A video group. They kind of digitally went out and recorded Zoom interviews with people about all sorts of elements of life, from love and sex to music and food and education to everything. In that kind of 1960s era. And we decided, as part of the the website that we would kind of allow people and kind of facilitate people to contribute their own stories. And we've had some lovely messages and some lovely recordings sent in. And we were lucky enough that a local performer, Sam Dunstan, agreed to read out one of these contributions. It was entitled Class and Education, and it's by Jeffrey White.
I was born in Netheredge Hospital in 1954. I grew up nearby on Abbeydale Road, the only child of parents who had both done well at school, but had not been allowed to proceed to grammar school on grounds of cost. Although they had their own terrace house, with bathroom, but only an outside toilet, and my dad had a job in the wages department of First Moorwood Vulcan, and then of English Steel, they considered themselves respectable working class. Carlton Old Juniors was very mixed, socially, and had a kind of Christian socialist ethos, which encouraged us all to claim high culture as part of our common heritage. We were taught to appreciate art and classical music, and the small library seemed wonderful to me. We were taught to sing, sometimes in French and Latin, though of course we didn't understand either. We were told to aim for the stars, but then perhaps all school children were. There was no television, but the headmistress would take a group of us home to watch school broadcasts on maths. I remember the binary system was significant because there were going to be things called computers. Despite having flu for the exam, I passed for King Edward's, and in general enjoyed it. Cap, tie and blazer were bought from the arcade at Moorfoot, and sports kit from Suggs, but my mother stitched together trousers and shirts to save money. I think this may have marked me out as a working class lad in an overwhelmingly middle class school. In the first form, there was a surreal event one lunchtime when some of my classmates marched me into the classroom to be tried as a barbarian. Our form master, Mr. Brownholtz, somehow got wind of this and sat in on the proceedings. He applauded me when I argued that since the point of being a barbarian was that you couldn't speak either of the classical languages, the fact that I'd just come out top in Latin cast some doubt on the charge. After that, there was a little class persecution. Indeed, what stands out in my memory was being accosted in school uniform on Abbeydale Road by a bunch of secondary modern lads for being a snob. At school, I was part of the musical set rather than the sportsman, but I got to be a prefect, chaired the Christian Union, which we called the Christian Forum, being a little more liberal, I suppose, and I was head librarian. I got to Oxford, despite some qualms on the part of the head of French, that I might find the social transition difficult. It was, but only for the first month. I kept my Yorkshire vowels and remain a socialist. I was ordained as a priest in the Church of England and retired 18 months ago as rector of Norton, back in the city I love and where I will remain.
Oh, thank you, Jeffrey White, for that. That was fascinating and amazing. And also, yeah, like keeping those Yorkshire vowels on the socialism, that's what that's what I like to hear. Made me think of Tony Harrison, and that grappling, sticking to that Yorkshire voice, but still insisting, that advice that was mentioned about aiming for the stars. I think it's so important. We can do that, and we have to give up our identity to do that. So I thought I'd read a poem now by Maya Angelou. So in the kind of spirit of rising and resisting and aiming for the stars, this is a poem that I shared at the workshop, and it's a poem, like a lot of these poems and lyrics and songs from this, that are meant to be spoken, they kind of demands to be heard. It's not written, these words are not written from one person just for themselves. They're written for voice. They demand breath, they demand to be embodied, they demand to be acted on, they demand change. So this is a poem by Maya Angelou, which you might have heard before, and if not, if you have, I hope you enjoy it. And I think it's a poem that I just revisit over and over again. And if it's the first time you're hearing it, then I hope you enjoy it. So it's called Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken, bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, because I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I am a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Wonderful poem.
Beautiful poem. I love it. Thank you so much for that, Rachel. We're nearly at the end. We have got one more little kind of contribution for the bill, and this one I very luckily don't have to introduce, because the person who performed it introduced it for us. This was another song that was produced for the Songs of Revolution event. It's actually one of the first things that the steering group for this event kind of came together and did. One of the first kind of creative exploits they came up with was to write and perform this song. So I'll let Brian introduce it. Over to Brian.
When Denise West, Sue Bearden and myself first got together to talk through what this festival might be, we agreed it might be useful to have some sort of theme song for it. I wanted to write a song that reflected troubled times and how the privileged few hold back the rest of us, without resorting to a linear narrative. By passing on images rather than a fixed plot, the listener can build his or her own storyline and sense of drama. The idea of going down a mine with a bird in a cage reminds me just how vulnerable we all are and how little the powers that be really care about us. Whether it's the young soldiers carelessly ordered to go over the top of the trenches in the First World War, or the poor souls adrift on a flimsy boat, escaping the horrors of their own country, or even people queuing in a food bank in modern Britain. Like the bird in the cage, sometimes all we can do is sing out. And so we all got fooled again, like so many times before. Deceived by false prophets and mercenary troubadours. And somewhere over the rooftops, the carrion crows circle and mock. And this place is just a warehouse which one of us is here to test the gauge. I hear echoes of freedom songs from a different age, and I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage. They overran the common land and enclosed it all with lies. Now you're from the wrong side of the river, where flowers seed and die. So get out your lucky penny, get out your rabbit's foot, or you'll be back up the chimney, earning crusts for sifting soot. And I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage, and I don't know which one of us is here to test the gauge. I hear echoes of freedom songs from a different age, and I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage. I see dreaming spires and mansions swathed in sycamore leaves, whilst chill winds whip around the roof and rattle through the eaves. And the Accrington pals voted Brexit and hung bunting on the lamps, and this year's fascist pin-up mugs from collector's edition stamps. And I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage, and I don't know which one of us is here to test the gauge. I hear echoes of freedom songs from a different age, and I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage. I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage, and I don't know which one of us is here to test the gauge. I hear echoes of freedom songs from a different age, and I'm going down underground with a songbird in a cage.
Wow, thank you. That was so moving, just from the heart, like amazing. And it's what we need to hear right now, I think. So thank you very much for that. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Thanks for everyone who's taken part in the festival, contributed their creativity and their energy. Thank you all for coming along and listening and watching and being part of this today. Yeah, it's been wonderful to be involved. Thank you.
And yes, thank you, Rachel. This festival has been the culmination of so many different people's hard work and creativity. So we have to thank the Age Better in Sheffield scheme, which has come to an end now, but has been creating years and years of opportunities for over 50s, the University of the Third Age, Sheffield Hallam University, the Arts Council, and the Cultural Recovery Fund, National Lottery Fund. And also some of the partners who've worked on events with us, including Sheffield Dock Fest and Yorkshire Dance and Migration Matters Festival and the Dirty Stop Outs. We've had wonderful contributors, including Rachel and Sam Dunstan and Chiwe Chihana, who were our quiz hosts. We had Dr. Stella Mascherini's keys and Sarah Dadswell, who hosted that wonderful cookery workshop. We had Neil Anderson, who kind of put on our big virtual club nights, and many, many, many more. Also thank very much to Tom Robbins, who's been our technical manager throughout the festival, and to the whole team at Ignite Imaginations. And most of all, thank you so much to everyone who's contributed, who's given their creativity to make this happen. There's Ian Barclay in the U3A video group, and our 3 steering group members who kind of pushed, were the driving force for this whole thing, of Denise West, Sue Bearden, and Brian Clark. It's been a pleasure to work with you all and a pleasure to spend time creating with you all. And we're going to hand back to Brian to say a quick goodbye.
Sadly, all good things must come to an end, and that's all from the Talking About Our Generation online festival. We hope you enjoyed it and perhaps shared some of your own views and memories of the 60s and the changes that took place then. If you wish to communicate or send feedback, please contact Joe Bunce at Ignite Imaginations, or you could email me personally on blclark9@hotmail.com. History is never just about kings, politicians and dates of famous battles. History is also about the lives that we all lead and have led. It's important to preserve your story, whatever that may entail, so that future generations remember our personal good times and our personal trials and tribulations. Why don't you find a way to record your life? Thanks for watching and listening. Cheers.